Hi. Well, I'm continuing my story, Robert Urban here. One of my, I don't know, favorite, but story that comes back to me is when I was 11 or 12. Was allowed to go into town. We lived about a quarter mile from town, but my mom did not like us to go into town and play with the kids. She wanted the kids to come out and play at our place. We had 4 acres just outside of town. That way she could watch their behavior, and if they weren't talking and behaving properly, she would send them home, which she did. I saw them do that. I saw her do that, saying that I don't want you to come out here anymore until you learn how to behave. And my mother set high standards, and she did not allow us to go into town, or at least she didn't allow me until I was about 12. And the first time or so when I went in town, there was a town bully by the name of Stanley Newmeyer. He was a child with a troubled past, and he was a relative of family that I was close to in town. Stanley was a bit of a bully, and he called me a son of a bitch. And I had been impressed by my father not to say that about my mother, and I didn't appreciate others saying about my mother, that about my mother to this day, actually. And Stanley, he said, Urban, you're a son of a bitch. And I said, don't call me a son of a bitch. Don't call my mom a bitch. And he said, what are you going to do about it? Well, I was on my bicycle riding into town by the firehouse. That's Jeromesville. And I said, I'll get off this bike and whatever. And he said, Irvin, you're a son of a bitch. Well, I got off the bike, threw him down on the ground. Stanley was bigger, wasn't particularly stronger, but I was used to wrestling with my brother, who was 20 pounds heavier about all the time. Well, Stanley, just about in the time it takes to say this, Stanley was on the ground, subdued, and I told him I was going to let him go and don't ever call my mom a bitch. So he gets up. Actually, he was riding the bike. And as he rides off into the sunset by the firehouse, he turns. He's a few dozen yards away, and as he's riding away, he turns and he says, Urban, you're still a son of a bitch. Well, I was fast enough to run him down, pull him off that bike, and I pummeled him until I got tired. And I said, anytime, any place, I can do this to you. Don't you ever do this. And oh, by the way, he was a town bully. And I said, I don't want you bothering kids, the young kids, in my presence. And so that's how we left it. Stanley stayed around for another year or so, and then he left. But he always gave me about 50 feet. And he never used that word bitch again. And that's the Stanley Newmeyer story.